All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. And tonight is a special Monday Night Live. Before I introduce Andrew and I, tonight's Monday Night Live, starting now, is presented by the great folks over at Queen Tackle, Mr. Jeff Queen and KJ Queen. For folks who may not know, Jeff Queen and KJ, we've had them on the show before. KJ is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro, and Jeff, his dad, what they call the godfather of the Carolinas, is what I like to call him by. But one who wreaks havoc in the Carolinas on the tournament scene.
Almost won the James.
Almost won the James River this year. The Queen family has built Queen Tackle to a few years back. I started this company, and now obviously, as you guys, if you've stuck with the show, you know a lot about the Queen Tackle products and how much Andrew and I trust these products. But basically, they have built a brand, and it's growing very fast. And they've showed us a lot of support, so we're showing them support back by making them the title sponsor of Monday Night Live moving forward. So we're happy to announce that. We're happy to have this show presented by Queen Tackle. And as always, folks, I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett, and joined with me, as always, is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. What is going on, dude?
Not a whole lot. Just got my truck back today. I have to say thank you to my buddy Chris for allowing me to borrow his truck Friday night. So me and Bailey were able to fish a derby on Saturday. It worked out very well in our favor. Without him, quick little shout out, we wouldn't have been able to fish and capture our first win together fishing a team trail tournament. So we're 1 out of 2, time to go 3 and 4 in a row. So let's have some fun.
Thank you to Chris for letting us whoop up on you Saturday.
Yeah, and then also another side note, thank you to Chris also for dropping me off to my sister-in-law's house after the derby and taking my boat back to his house so I didn't have to commute back to Rochester to pick up my boat this week. So it's only like 20 minutes from my house. So I couldn't be ever more thankful to him. It's really good to have good friends and always take care of your friends because they'll take care of you. And that's one of my sidebars of the day is have good friends, have loyal friends, and treat them like gold because they will do anything for you. So just in return, make sure you'll do anything for them.
Andy's getting Taylor Swift deep, and we're only 3 minutes into the show.
It happens. I'm just forever thankful. So.
Andy's had a few beers already, so he's feeling soft.
No, just a quarter of one.
No, I'm just messing
softy.
Well, we told Mark, we have Mark Pendergraf, who is down in the queue for our guest for today's show. And I told him we'll be about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll obviously introduce him and get him in the show. Well, Mark, we're going to be a couple more minutes, so hang tight. I know you got a beer down there. We'll get you on soon, I promise. We have a really cool show today, guys, so obviously we're going to get to that in a second. But we have some things that we need to go over with you guys really fast because this is all on me. We have had some people come to us asking why they're not getting the 20% off when they go to buy Hobie eyewear when they use the link as we've instructed folks to do, and they're not getting the 20% when they go to buy. Well, that is because you have to go to that link and use code SERIOUS20. And I made the mistake of not putting SERIOUS20 in the description, so it was my fault. It is all changed now. If you are trying to get some Hobie eyewear, down in the description, you will see the link with the correct code to go get yourself some 20% off. I
had to read through like 15 emails today to find that code. So I was like, there's a code? What? I thought it was just the link.
Yeah.
So I will also take blame on there. Sorry, guys.
It's on us, but it's all
Life
good now.
Hectic. Yes.
We are good. And also congratulations to, speaking of Hobie, to the winners of Hobie BOS on Lake Champlain. It looked like a lot of people battled through the elements. It sounded like a lot of people actually flipped, which is kind of a scary thing to think about. Thankfully, the temperatures are up enough that it's not too dangerous. So glad everyone's okay, first of all, but also shout out to all the winners. A bunch of people who I think Ike fished, and he fished, I think, at 7. So 6 people whooped up on Ike, and congratulations out to the top 3 who qualified for the TOC. It was pretty wicked. There's some giant smallies caught, which I was really glad to see on the standings. I was jealous. I wish I would have been there. It would have been a lot of fun. My car is still in the shop, and it's going to be in the shop for probably another 2 weeks. Unfortunately, for folks who wanted to hear about that story of my car getting hit, the whole part 1 of the BASS Kayak series that I posted to the channel is up. you can see the damage that my car took. But she got us down and got us back home, so that's what counts. But
yeah. So a little sidebar here. It's kind of like what Drew Gregory has said a few times. These big kayak trails shouldn't be putting kayak tournaments. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Like, they should take them off of these massive waterways because of the safety issue. You get a strong south wind on Champlain, you have people rolling over. What if somebody had died because they're out over 100 foot of water a mile offshore trying to cross? Like, that's just dangerous, in my opinion.
I agree, but I also disagree in the terms of, I don't think you should take these big, and obviously I think it's a great conversation for Mark to be in on, being a kayak angler as well, which we'll talk about more. But really fast, I think the same thing could be said for some boat trails. There was a tournament launched out of Cayuga that probably should have been canceled for how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
But they still went out, and thankfully no one got hurt. But like, you still shouldn't take these amazing fisheries away from these tournament trails. It's more of just, I don't think it was a fact that Champlain was bad to be on, because look how good the fishing was.
Yeah.
I think it was more of maybe some anglers weren't used to that big water scenarios and how fast and how quick Champlain can get rowdy.
And they put themselves in a bad situation.
Yeah, but which obviously we'll talk about. And actually, it would be kind of cool to talk to Mark about, because he's from the south, so it's completely different than up here in the north. But a couple quick notes for folks. Starting July 1st, we're running a huge giveaway. We're going to probably do it by week. So for the week of July, each week, we're going to be running a pretty sweet giveaway for you guys to get in on. So make sure you're following us over on Instagram and Facebook so you guys can stay up to date on what we're giving away there. But other than that, Andrew and I are going to talk about our tournament win once we have our show over here with Mr. Mark Pendergraf. We'll talk and dive into all that. But I think and most importantly, I think without further ado, Andrew.
Yeah, let's get Mark on here. The only kayak guy with a blue trophy, which is incredible.
Mr. Mark Pendergraf, what's going on, dude?
Not much, guys. Just sitting here in the fishing room, drinking beer, listening to y'all.
And congrats again. That's an awesome accomplishment. So,
thank you.
As a boater and a non-kayak angler, I am quite envious. So,
yeah, I got a buddy out of East Texas. He runs all the Bass Opens, and he's had a rough 2 years on him. And he called me and told me he was going to sneak into my house and steal it from me.
I think the only downside of being the only kayak angler with a blue trophy is that it's a blue trophy you can't drink out of.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I can come up with something.
You take like a funnel to the side of it or something.
That's where I was going to grab one of my beer bongs.
There you go. It's just a party toy. That's all it is now.
Fair enough.
Giant paperweight sitting behind me.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you're from Texas, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for folks who may not know, and obviously I don't know you very well, I had a brief moment talking to you at the Classic with my good buddy Destin DeMarion as we're in line to get corn dogs.
Yes.
So I didn't get the great opportunity to talk to you then. So for folks like myself and folks tuning in, listening, or watching, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into fishing in the first place, and then kind of a little bit of, how you got to where you are now, being the only kayak angler with a blue trophy.
Mark Pendergraf. I'm born and raised here in Texas. I was born in Fort Worth, raised in East Texas. Then I moved back here after high school. Got into fishing at a young age. My dad was really big into taking striper trips. He has a really good friend that is a striper guide up on Lake Texoma, so we'd always travel up there. And I've been fishing that and doing like bait fishing for most of my life. And right before my son was born, me and my now wife had gotten together. And I was like, I want a boat. And she's like, well, we can't afford a boat right now. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to buy a kayak. So we went up to the local shop, and I found out kayaks were pretty expensive. So I went and just bought an inflatable one at Academy, and that lasted all of 2 trips before I bought a kayak. And from there, I bought the kayak, and the guy at the tackle shop, his name's Rick. He's been a buddy for the last 6 years. He's like, they do tournaments for these things. I'm like, well, I don't really know anything about bass fishing. I was like, I just started. And I knew striper, and I could catch crappie off the barge and catfish off the bank, but targeting bass was a whole new deal. And I was like, well, I mean, it sounds fun. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could figure it out. So I ended up fishing a cat's trail down here in Texas. Is on Houston County. I fished the social division and ended up winning with like 65 inches or something like that. And I was hooked after that, and met a
That
lot
was
of
for
different.
3 fish, right?
No, that was 5 fish. It was the social
wow.
division. So
wow. Okay.
the guys who were first timers, stuff like that, like me. So
Okay.
that was big. And the guy that won the pro side of it, as they called it, and he put up like 98 inches. So I mean, huge difference.
You want on.
Huge difference. But I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to figure this out. So I stuck with it. And then I met Duke Tran here in DFW, and he ran the North Texas Kayak Championship Trail. And he's like, well, come out and fish with us. And we do working mans on Thursday night. So I was doing all that. And it just progressed from there and ended up qualifying for a national and so on and so forth. And it's just kept rolling. I've advanced with everything, new gear, new electronics, all that fun stuff. I think for the first probably 2 years, I don't think I ran electronics. So.
Oh, dang. So wait. So
Yeah.
when you were getting your start, what year was that when you started bass fishing?
Bass fishing, I want to say it was 16.
16? Okay.
15 or 16.
So you're not even 10 years in.
No.
That's freaking awesome. And you already won a national championship.
Yeah. I'm kind of proud of myself.
That's
grinding,
badass, dude.
Absolutely grinding. Incredible.
So
that's pretty sweet, dude. So what kind of, like, if you had to put a label on it, what kind of angler do you think you are? Are you kind of an offshore guy, a shallow guy? Are you kind of turn and burn, or you pick everything apart? What kind of angler are you?
I'm a little bit all over the place. I don't like fishing deep. I figured it out over the last couple of years, kind of how to find them out there. I avoid it at all costs. I like to go shallow. I like to flip. I like to punch. I like close quarters fishing. I like you get around boathouses, skip those. I move a lot. That's one thing that I typically do is I move pretty fast. Now that I'm in the AP 120, I can actually do that and be consistent with it. But I like to fish shallow and I like to move. So
heck yeah. Yeah, I know. Obviously, you could see by the label for anyone watching, you can see the Hobie logo there. But yeah. I put credit where credit is due, and that autopilot is a badass boat.
It is. It's a phenomenal boat. I mean, I've had a couple different brands that I've been in, and I was in the PDL, and the PDL was a phenomenal boat for me. It completely changed the way I fished because I was in paddle boats before that. I was in a Wilderness Commander and a Bonafide. And I finally got into the Old Town, and it has changed everything. So,
if you had to put beyond the obviously the essentially an all, because it is an Ultrex in it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I believe so.
I wasn't sure exactly which Minn Kota motor was on it, but I could have sworn it was an Ultrex. But beyond the actual motor being able to spot lock, what is your favorite feature about that autopilot?
Oh, my seat by far.
Seat? Okay.
Yeah. Dude, it's so comfortable. I mean, you get in kayaks where, I mean, you got a company out there that makes kayak cushions for seats that are uncomfortable and that you can't sit in for long periods of time. Whereas my seat is extremely comfortable and I like sitting in it. But, I mean, as per the boat and fishing wise, just the deck, the fact that it actually has a decent little deck in it, the hole is nice, and I can stand up, I can walk up towards the motor, I can turn around in circles if I need to. I mean, it's just so stable.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's cool to in general amongst the top brands of kayaks kind of see the advancements that they're making from a hull design standpoint and just making these kayaks a lot more reliable in terms of obviously you don't have the sense of I'm going to tip over. You're not really worried about it too much. It almost becomes a sense of you're never really worried about tipping it. Stability is becoming less and less of an issue with each new model that these companies are coming out with, which is pretty wicked cool to see. But
it is definitely. It'll lull you into a sense of false security for sure, though.
Oh yeah, because you'll get the one wave or something, one freak scenario that'll flip you over. Thankfully, it's not, knock on wood, happened to me yet. We've been okay, but with how, airhead minded I can be sometimes, I'm sure it is bound to happen sometime. And hopefully I didn't curse myself, but we're so far so good. But
knock on wood, buddy. Knock on wood.
Yeah, yeah, right here. But dude, so obviously we've seen pictures. I listened to you on stage. We got kind of a glimpse at how you won this kayak championship, and obviously we're going to get into it. But I want to save it for a little bit because I think for a lot of people it's an interesting conversation to hear about how this championship got announced during the national event at Lake Chickamauga, as it was going to be on Lake Louisville. And obviously there was more of a negative connotation to folks that were looking at fishing the event, me being one of them. And I fully admitted that in my part one to my travel down to Possum Kingdom. I fully admitted that I mentally lost already if it was on Louisville because I was just had a negative mindset that it was Louisville. So I'm curious your outlook when it was announced to Louisville and then changed to Possum Kingdom and that time leading up to official practice. What was kind of going through your head? Did you have a feeling like you had a shot? Were you just excited to be in it? What was kind of going through your brain?
So when they announced Louisville, I live here and I know what Louisville is. There's some good fishing to be had on Louisville. It holds some nice monsters in there. But during the summer, Louisville is just an extremely dangerous lake. And I think we would have been all right running through midweek. I think we would have been okay over on Louisville with that. It would have been a weekend tournament. It would have been really dangerous. There's just too many boats out there with people drinking, and they don't care. So that's Louisville's a huge party lake, a huge rec lake, and I used to go out there and party in my buddies' wake boats all the time, and yeah, there's been times out on just boats in general that it gets pretty dicey, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine trying to do that in a kayak. So, but when they switched it over to Possum Kingdom, I got a little bit more excited. I got two areas that I fish frequently on Possum Kingdom that really produce. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have a shot at this tournament, and I was really excited for it to be there. And the fact that it was that time of year, and I had been out on Possum Kingdom during the summer, and those fish just, they've always been there for me during pre-fishing. We'll say I've never done well in a tournament, but during
well, the stars aligned is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. So I was excited that I was going to Possum, but then I had a feeling that I could at least cash a check. I didn't think I'd podium, but I knew I could cash a check and at least finish in the top end of the field.
Right. Okay. So here's my question then, because driving down, I drove down and I got there around a Friday. And Friday I'm driving down and the route I took me towards the north side of the lake, where for everybody who's down there earlier, you saw that the north side, because of the Brazos, was literally it passed like a chocolate milk stage and turned into orange juice is what it looked like in the sun. It was just straight orange mud.
Was it like a super clay bank lake?
It's a red dirt bottom, yeah.
So to the point, Andrew, you could take a black and blue jig and put it in the water, and you can't see your trailer, but you can see your jig head. It was that dirty. And so I saw that, and I was like, oh, dang. Obviously I'm not going north. Any plans I had practicing north is out the window. And as I got further down, I realized, oh, it's cleaning up. And I had a sense of false hope that maybe you wouldn't get down to the south end where I was thinking about practicing. Obviously, that changed each day as I got further and further and further along. Did you intend to fish where you had obviously fished in the tournament, or was that somewhere you had kind of adjusted? What was your practice like? Was that something you had in game plan already to fish in that tournament, or was that an adjustment you made because of the mud?
Moving south was an adjustment I made because of the mud. I had started day one of practice on Sunday up in the state park. Okay. And the mud was out heavy in the main channel, and it had stained up the coves pretty good. To where I went out and practiced, and I caught some fish, nothing of size though. And I knew, I was like, okay, well, it's muddy up here. We need to move further down the lake. And there's two spots that I usually fish on that lake are in the main channel, so they were unfishable. So I didn't even bother checking those out. But where I ended up fishing the tournament is I had fished there a couple times before, and it's usually typically a really clear place, and I shy away from it. I like to fish. There's a lot of boat slips. There's a good marina there, and I hadn't been there in probably about 2 years, and the boat slips there, they usually hold fish really well. If you find empty slips or slips where you can actually get down the side of the boat, throw a walking bait or a jerk bait up in there, you can usually, catch some good fish coming out from underneath those slips. And that was my game plan, was to go check that out. And I did on Monday. I went there and I realized the water was dirtier, so that top water, shad looking walking bait bite wasn't really going to be there for me. So I just went scouting on bluff walls and started throwing crankbaits and found fish that way. And I was like, well, the fish here are better than at the state park. I got one more place I want to check tomorrow. And when I checked that place, the entire field had launched their kayaks there in practice. I was like, well, I'm not going to fish here. So I went back to the bluffs.
Right. Okay. So so the ramp, I mean, I feel, is it okay to talk about in public? I mean, there are pictures on Bassmaster.
Oh, no, everybody knows where I was. So
okay. So you basically won this on a ramp that everyone, like a lot of people in that field, launched from, right? So essentially you launched there and then just turned around and fished a ramp?
Yeah. There's actually only about 6 guys. Yeah, there's only about 6 guys that launched on that ramp. Now, where Joe launched, he had a lot of guys down there with him. But on my ramp, there's only about 6 people with me. But yeah, day one, I actually didn't fish the ramp until the tournament was almost over. And I had gone out and I had fished the area like I wanted to. And I wasn't catching anything of size, and I had pretty much given up all hope. So I left the area I was in. I was like, I'm just going to go back towards the boat ramp and fish that area. There's a good bluff wall behind me, and I like that bluff wall. It holds fish. And I got there, and Justin Faircloth was fishing it. So I was like, whatever, I'll just, go further back in here and maybe find some boathouses. And I was passing by the boat ramp, and I could see it in between the marina store and the boat slips. And there was this fish popping on it. I was like, I'm going to go over there and make a cast. And went over there and caught a striper. And I think this was like 1:30 on day one, 30 minutes till the tournament was over. Caught a striper. I was like, that was neat. That was a lot of fun. Casted back in there, caught a sand bass, caught another sand bass. And I was like, well, that's, I'm not going to win this tournament. I'm probably not going to be in the money. I'm just going to sit here and fish the rest of the day. And I made one bad cast and hooked a 19 or a 20-inch bass. And it was a melee from there for the last 30 minutes of the day. I went from having 4 fish for 57 inches to calling out those fish and replacing them with 5 for 97.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Talk about a half-hour rally. Did you turn your cap inside out and put it up in rally time, or?
No. I don't stop casting until I have to. So that had a lot to do with it.
Perseverance. I like it.
That's awesome. So then day 2, essentially you launched there then and just let everyone go and then just spin your kayak around and just wreak havoc on them.
Yeah, so Justin Faircloth sat there with me while I did all that on day 1 in the last 30 minutes. He was all pumped for me and just like, dude, this is insane. I've never seen anything like it. And when I got there that morning, Justin was on the ramp and we got to talking, and Daniel Lyons was there, and he had ended up leaving that ramp at noon the day before, but he had caught a fish off of it before he left for 20 inches or something like that. And I told him, I was like, well, he knows there's fish here. He caught one off of it. I'm going to talk to him before we launch. And we were sitting there. I was like, hey, man. I was like, I know you caught a fish here yesterday before you left. I was like, I just wanted to let you know. I was like, I don't plan on leaving the boat ramp. I'm going to sit here and fish. He goes, oh, that's fine, man. I got spots I'm going to. And I was like, okay, cool, man. I'll see you later. And we launched, and I literally motored out about 25 yards, put the spot lock on, and waited till first cast.
That is awesome. That is the most and here's what I like to tell people when I heard about this is how you won. And I was like, that is the most simple, stupid, but badass way to win a tournament.
I mean, I lucked into fish. I mean, and I like to think, usually I luck into fish. I mean, I'm not the most serious tournament angler out there, and I'm probably not going to be the only one to tell you that. I don't take it to heart serious. I'm fishing out of a plastic boat, man. And that's the way I look at it. It's I'm here for fun.
You're fishing free.
Yeah, I was like, I'm here for fun. If I catch fish and win a tournament, great. If I don't catch fish, I'm still going to get to go to the award ceremony, drink beer, and chat with my buddies. So that's the way I approach tournaments all the time. And I'll look at maps every now and then, be like, this place looks good. This is where I'm going to go look. And that's about how I do it. I get out there and make casts. If I don't catch fish, I move on to the next.
Well, you know what? I agree with you on the point of lucking into fish, but I also think that there are anglers that get lucky more often, and I like to call it more often you're more fortunate because you set yourself up to have luck or good fortune. You put the right steps in, whether it's putting in the work or just having that general angler intuition to kind of understand what's going on, to put the pieces together. That sets you up to find to how you called it, luck into fish more often if you have those pieces. And I think that's what's going on for you. And obviously that worked. And something that's really cool, and I really hope that I either one didn't delete the footage or two still have it, because I'm editing part 2, which is my practice footage. I met my buddy Mike Elsey down in that creek arm that you won it on that boat ramp.
Yeah.
And we are pedaling our way back because we launched way up. I'm trying to remember, above the north side of the horseshoe. I don't even know what the number of it, what the ramp was called. And so we had like a 3-mile pedal back, and we're pedaling by that boat ramp, and I see it on my right. And I really hope that you can hear it in the GoPro footage behind me. But I'm looking at my graph, and I see off that ledge, and I see fish on it. I'm like, striper, because it's all muddy. I didn't think the bass would be out there. I look at Mike, I'm like, I bet you there's a bass on that ramp, and we're just talking. We just keep going. We don't even fish it. And then Bassmaster posts the photos of you with your giants, and you're on that ramp, and I'm like, swearing to myself, I'm like, son of a, like, you have the intuition, you're not smart enough to at least take a cast. And dude, like, you did. And that was what's so sick about it, is you literally launched, and as you say, 25 yards, turn around. And what was, for folks who aren't, proficient in kayak and inches, what do you think your weight was for those 5 fish for that day?
For that day, probably close to 40 pounds. For the 2-day total, about 70 to 80.
Oh my god, it's so badass.
It sounds like they held the Bassmaster Classic on the wrong lake.
More like this was the Bassmaster Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. PK, it showed out. It really did. There's always been big fish in there, and it's easy to put up mid-90s in that lake, no matter what time of year you're there. And I mean, there's always good fish on that lake. And Ray Roberts, for the big boys, Ray Roberts is a great lake. I've had a ton of luck on that lake as well. But when it's flooded, man, those fish they scatter. And doing it in a bass boat would be a little hard, whereas, the people on Sam Rayburn fished those flooded conditions, and they were able to get their kayaks off in the woods, and they could catch those fish that flew all the way up there.
Right.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Hang on.
No, you're good, dude. Fatherly duties with Mark.
It's just incredible that he won on a boat ramp.
Isn't that sick, though?
I wonder if you caught him on one of those. I think those are Normans behind him. Don't quote me.
I believe those are Excite baits.
Oh, they are Excite. Yeah,
Excite baits.
I think you're correct.
So here's what's interesting, Andrew. So, in the wise words of Matt Pendergraf on BTL, he has like a little slogan. And I don't know if I can quote it correctly, but he basically says, like, when you're in a pinch looking for fish, he says it's like boat ramps, docks, and like rip wrap or something like that. It's kind of like a code that
docks, rip wrap. Yeah, he said that with us.
Exactly, and basically that's what Mark explained, was like he wasn't on the right bites. He's just going to go back and fish essentially by that code of rip wrap, docks, boat ramps, and it paid off for him. Not only just getting a limit, but calling out his entire limit with giants and having almost a 40-pound bag both days.
Oh, absolutely. So
that's what's so badass about it, is you made that right adjustment. It's just a simple concept of you're not getting bites, boat ramps, docks, rip wrap. And you put that all together, and that's what's so sick about it. I
think in general, we as bass fishermen tend to overthink everything. Yeah, they're fish with brains about the size of a nut. So, I think as fishermen, we have brains the size of nuts as well, because we have one gear, and that's catch fish. But yeah, it's just It's almost ironic the fact that you went down to something as simple as a boat ramp, and everyone else is running and scattering all over this flooded lake, and here you are catching them off a boat ramp. You went 25 yards on day 2 and exhausted, no energy basically besides having to cast around a big plug all day. I'm assuming that's what you caught him on.
Yeah, big.
From what I heard. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that part sucks, but it's awesome at the same time because your arm probably hurt by the end of the day, dragging that big old plug around.
It was a lot. So I like I said, I like the flip and punch, and I thought that was one of the most exhausting ways to fish. Because by the end of the day, if I've done an entire tournament and I've been punching grass all day long, I'm usually pretty worn out. And after cranking 30 minutes, like hard cranking, catching fish almost every cast on day 1 for 30 minutes, I was beat when I got up to the ramp. And then doing it for a full day, just cast after cast after cast. And these bass, I've caught fish on crankbaits, and it's usually a softer bite. You're like, oh, there's a fish right there.
Were they ripping it out of your hand?
Bass, man. Like if I hit a sand bass, I know I had one because it was running right at me. If I hit a striper, it was swimming straight up the boat ramp. But when these bass hit, and they range from 17 inches all the way up to 24, and when they hit, it was literally like setting a hook into a bag of concrete. It was just nuts the amount of pressure they put on it.
That's insane because they're probably coming up and did they have it like choked in their mouth or were they T-boning it?
Usually it was sideways in their mouth. They got a pretty good bite on it, but I think about 4 of them actually took the whole crankbait into the mouth. I got lucky on one; it went all the way into the gullet, and I was actually able to save that one. So that was really cool.
Nice.
I wasted the entire bottle of Coke, but do what?
Did you say you had a picture of one of them?
Yeah. I think I still got the picture in my phone where it's all the way in the mouth.
So it sounds like they were eating it, and as you're feeling that thud because they were turning away from you as you were leaning into them. That's why it felt like.
I guess it was either that or they're just swimming straight up the boat ramp as it was coming down, and they're just taking it. I still don't know exactly how they were staged on that boat ramp. I was able to fish a tournament last weekend there as well, and I didn't put up near the amount that I did there for the Bassmaster, but it was good enough for a 3rd and 4th place finish. So
nice.
But I was still not able to figure out how they were staging on it now, and it cleared up a little bit, and I've seen some pictures of that boat ramp out of the water now. So it kind of puts my mind at ease, but it's a lot of man-made sand right there that they put in when they did the marina and everything. So there's actually some grass on that ledge you saw right in front of that boat ramp where it goes from about 15 feet down to 40.
Yeah.
There's actually some grass growing on that ledge.
Yeah, you could see them sitting right in it, and dummy me thought it was striper and not bass.
It was a combination of all 3 of them, in all honesty. I caught in 2 days off that boat ramp. I probably caught over 200 fish.
Oh my god!
And all different, the different 3 species: striper, sand bass, hybrids, and black bass. They're all just stacked in there. It was awkward.
Now, I believe, if I remember side imaging correctly for that specific ramp, it has that hard concrete and then it drops a little bit, and like you mentioned, then it's sand. So they might have been just sitting on that drop.
They could have been. Actually off the boat ramp itself, it goes straight concrete into the sand. The sand's worked up over the boat ramp, but it's got straight edges on both sides, all the way down to about 12 feet, so they can just stack in there.
That's awesome. So were you slow rolling this crankbait or were you burning it?
Slow rolling it. Getting it to go. I do 3 hard cranks just to get it down into the dirt. And then I'd slow it down and just drag it all the way down pretty much, creating as much noise and sound as I could.
Okay. So talk us through the setup. Rod, line, reel, gear ratio, bait.
So I was using a Strike King 5XD Sexy Shad. Didn't really matter what color you were throwing in that muddy water. Even a chartreuse blackback, I mean, I don't think a fish could have seen it. Everything was going to be reaction bites in my mind. And then the rod was my ALX Icos Thunder. It's an extra heavy. I believe it's a 7. I want to say it's a 7.3 or 7.6. And then I was using 15-pound fluorocarbon P-line. And then I had my Lew's custom on there that was a 751, but I ended up bird nesting it early morning on day 2 because I don't run brakes on it. I just thumb everything, and I bird nested it to no end, and I couldn't save it, so I ended up trying about 3 different reels out that I had on the other rods, and the only one that seemed to cast and reel the way I wanted it to was a 5-year-old Lew's Speed Spool $99 reel, and I burned that thing into the ground.
You got your money. You got your $99 worth out of that thing.
I got my $99 worth of it. I went and casted with it last weekend. I kind of took it apart and oiled up everything, but yeah, those gears are shot in it now. So I went and picked up some more reels last weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, so why I appreciate your win so much is because you kept it so simple and obviously were so successful. When you had people out there, and I know I wasn't the only one, that was sitting there trying to input different things into almost like a mental calculator and taking it almost too serious to the point of maybe I should have just hitting the same stuff I was hitting that I was finding success on, even though that the mud was there, and should have. I thought with a fishery that was that clean from what I had found and going to that muddy, that okay, what I got to do is, crash the bank. If it gets muddy like this, these fish are going to go right to the bank. So I followed the bank, and there was some there, but I think there was fish that were already on the bank. And then day 2, you get water falling because they were pulling water. So then, for me, in my mind, for some reason, I try to force this mental calculator of inputting different things, right? So I have muddy water crashing the bank, and I have falling water, which means go deep, and I have the 2 going like this. So my mind went like this, and it led to just a shitty day 2. So it was kind of cool to see, and I learned a lesson from you in the fact of if you just keep it simple, fish are still going to act like fish. They're not going to go completely bonkers like I did and spinning out. Get rid of this mental calculator on scenarios like that are kind of going crazy and just get back to basics. And that's what you did.
Man, and honestly, that you hit it on the head. I try to keep it as simple as possible. My bait selections are very similar: shad colors, chartreuse. I'll keep the reds in the box for early spring. Then I get rid of them as soon as spawn's over, and I'm back to my shads and my chartreuses. And then with plastics, it's watermelon, red flake, black and blue, and white. So, and then, as you said, with the water conditions changing the way they were and them drawing current, my theory, and I tend to stick to it, is if the water's dirty, those fish are going to slide up and get as close to cover as they can. And they're going to stay there until it clears up. If there's current, those fish are going to move into a break. If it's muddy current, they're going to just get as tight as they can to something. And that's the way I went after this, finding dirty water that I knew I was going to have to fish. Is I fished bluff walls. I didn't cast at the bluff wall. I cast parallel with the bluff wall, and I ran it right down the side of it. And that's where I was finding my fish and pre-fishing and early day 1, the little ones that didn't really mean much. But that's how I found them, and I just stuck with that pattern until I found them on the boat ramp.
Heck yeah. That's awesome, dude. We actually have a question here for you here from Charles Blood, and he's asking, when the water is rising fast, are you going to current, or are you finding places that won't have much change in it? Good question.
So that is a good question. I don't really typically fish areas that have that accessibility of the rise as fast as they do.
Right.
If they do, let's see, the one would be I fished Chickamauga with the Hobie BOS when they had it up there, and they were having their torrential rain up there, and it flooded out the cities nearby. Lake went up 10 feet in 2 days. It was nuts. But with something like that, I did what I did at PK. I moved up to the bank. The fish are going to move out of the current. They're going to sit there and wait for their food to come by. And that's how I fished that, is I found current breaks along with the main channel that was running through creeks. And I'd fish on those little rock walls or something where a fish would stage in general. I just think they're going to get a lot closer.
Right.
So, but yeah, moving water, definitely I'm going for a current break. If it's a lake that's rising, I mean, fish are going to go up with the water. I'm going as shallow as possible.
Good to know. There you go, Charles. So Mark, one thing we talked about offline that was news to me that I had no idea is, well, and for folks that saw the final results, is it was close. It was, you won by a half an inch.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very close. Like, I think closer than a lot of people realize. But it should not have been that close from what you brought to my attention. Do you want to tell the folks what happened?
I mean, and it still would have been close. It just wouldn't have been as close.
Right.
So day one, one of my 20.5-inch fish. So on the iPhone 11, not the older iPhones. The older iPhones, if you hold the button too long, it takes like 1,000 pictures for you, which is really cool. On the new iPhones, you hold the camera button too long, it turns from picture to video on its own. So one of my 20.5-inch fish, I did it 4 times in a row without knowing. I took 4 videos of this fish instead of pictures. And I had to email it in to Dwayne and Patrick, and they unfortunately told me, they're like, we can't accept the fish. There's no way we can pull a slide out of this video that has a timestamp and location on it. I was like, well, I mean, it's okay. It's only 2 inches. It is what it is. So day one, I should have had 99, ended up with 97 inches. And I talked to Dwayne about it. I had to go back to the Chamber of Commerce day one to do some stuff with Old Town. He was there. And jokingly, I was like, man, if this 2 inches come back to bite me in the ass, me and you are going to be having a different conversation tomorrow. And it was all joking. I mean, I knew they did what they could to try and help me, and I was grateful that they put in the effort to do that. So it was my fault, and my fish didn't make it through. And then rolling into day 2, I put everything on the line and got to where I got. And Joe did the same thing. And unfortunately, he had a fish that he could not get the mouth closed on, and it ended up costing him an inch deduction. So he was ahead of me by half an inch. And with that deduction, he dropped below at half an inch. And then with my fish from day one, I should have been an inch and a half above him. So it was an insane tournament. And Ryan Lambert made a good point. To win tournaments like this, you have to do everything right. And it just goes to show that me and Joe both had one little slip, and it completely changed the outcome.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That would have been insane if Joe's, if his fish actually closed its mouth, if you had yours to go through. Yeah, it would have been crazy, man. That would have been a crazy turn of events in terms of just scoring fish. Like, that's a lot of pressure. One, on just like the tournament committee, like Dwayne and team, to like one being like, oh my gosh, this is the first BASS Kayak Classic or championship, and we get this presented at us, that they come up with a tie. Like, that's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, there was.
But also on the flip side, from a fan perspective, it would have been kind of cool to explain why. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you tie and how it all works, but obviously not for you, because you came out with 20 grand, so you're happy the way it happened.
Yeah, I'm extremely stoked about it. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit. But Andrew, do you have anything for Mark here before we hit him with our last question and we let him go?
No, because I think he covered it for the most part. But I do have one question. Why the extra heavy rod with the crankbait?
Like I said, I'm not a big crankbait guy. And I was planning on actually cranking deeper than I was with the 5XD and the 6XD. Some of those bluff walls get down to 40, 50, 60 feet. Mm-hmm. So that's the rod I would typically use for deep cranking. I don't know why. It works for me. I feel it's enough that it has the backbone I need with a little bit of give to it. And if I could, I've got a GoPro, and you can actually see some of the hook sets that I set with this, and the rod bends. It gives me the bend that I need to keep a crankbait fish on there.
Bend? That's awesome.
So, I mean, it's a phenomenal rod. And originally I had bought that rod flipping, and I had talked to a guy He's like, yeah, when I deep crank, I use a heavy rod or an extra heavy, longer rod, because I mean, you're dragging 20, 30 feet into the water. You need a stronger rod than those glass rods or those medium heavy rods. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And that kind of just stuck with me ever since I heard that. And that's typically what I go to now.
Yeah, good move.
Awesome.
I did want to say one thing because I heard y'all's comment about taking kayak tournaments off big water lakes.
Oh yeah. Let's get into this.
So, I keep it simple when it comes to stuff like this. When people complain about the weather or the high winds, rain, storms, all that, we're adults. We paid our money to get into the tournament, but if your main purpose in life is self-preservation, don't launch or go find somewhere where you feel safe fishing. Champlain, I mean, it can get nasty out there. And we saw pictures from Eric Siddiqui. He was videotaping coming across with those nice 3-foot rollers coming at him. And if you're not somebody that can get out there and handle a situation like that comfortably, you shouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the tournament director's fault. It's not the tournament trail's fault. I mean, these lakes are where the fish are. These are the big fisheries. And hands down, I mean, it's up to the individual, unless the tournament director goes, no, it's way too dangerous, we're going to cancel today. And that I respect if a tournament director does that. But, I mean, if it's a lake that, a 10-mile-an-hour wind equals a 20-mile-an-hour wind, the angler should know that and be prepared for it. And if you're not adept to handling big water, don't get out there and fish it. I mean, in my mind, it's that simple. I've never fished 3-4 foot rollers chasing smallmouth, so you would have found me in the river or up in a cove or somewhere I know I'd be comfortable at. I mean, not to say that I don't get out there on main bodies of water and chance it, but I know that I need to do this to get myself back safely to my ramp. And I don't go sideways. I kind of angle into the waves. I don't take them head on, and I definitely don't take them broadside. So I kind of just go back at an angle and do what I'm supposed to in my mind. But that's my theory on it, is we're all adults. If you get out there and you don't know how to handle yourself, I mean, bad things happen. So
that's a fair point.
Being prepared. Yeah. It's not a youth event. I mean, I think with Drew's point of talking about getting on these smaller bodies of water, I think it's very smart in the fact of, from a business side of kayak fishing, and not competing with the boats in terms of tournament waters. And I love that. But I also think you shouldn't take away these bigger bodies of water from a kayak scene because of the fisheries they have. And because you can see guys like Mark who put up these gigantic bags where we can still fish successfully on it. But you have, with these bigger bodies of water, you have more chance of
more risk, but more reward. Definitely
more risk involved. But with that comes, you need to have experience. And that just comes with folks that need to spend maybe, on an event, say, Lake Erie, because Hobie was going to do an event on Lake Erie last year. Unfortunately, it got canceled. I was actually really looking forward to that. An event like that, I would have been, depending on the weather, that would have been an interesting event for a lot of non-northerners, I guess.
Don't pick on us southern anglers. We got waves down here.
Okay. No, so I don't mean any disrespect to you southern guys, because you guys get nasty weather. I experienced it at a little bit going through the storms at PK, but the Great Lakes are a completely different beast than any other body of water.
Oh yeah.
It's because it can get nasty, and they can get nasty fast. Not saying other lakes can't, but like these waves are completely different than any other place in the country.
Yeah, my wife's dad's from Milwaukee, and we go up there and we see him every year. And I was up there during the summer, and a storm blew through, and watching these waves come over the marina breaks was just insane. I was like, that looks like an ocean out there. In fact, that is an ocean. So that is definitely a lake that I would find extremely intimidating to go fish. I mean, not saying that I don't want to, because I do, because I go up there every year and I stare at it. I'm like, I want to go out there in my kayak. And then the storm rolls in. I'm like, no, I don't want to go out there in my kayak anymore. I want to take that big yacht over there and go look around.
They're magical places, but they are the places that you need to have the utmost respect for in terms of Mother Nature.
Yeah,
I guess I mean, Andrew, it was in probably March is when ice was starting to come off Erie, and there was a west, 25, 30 mile an hour wind, and it was 17-foot waves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a whole, like you said, Mark, it is an ocean. It is an ocean within the country. It is, it's pretty rowdy, and it's Champlain. Our Finger Lakes can not saying that they're going to have 17-foot waves, but our lakes run directly north to south.
Yeah,
and they are long. Like Andrew, how long? Do you know how long Champlain is?
I want to say Champlain is somewhere around 80 to 90 miles long from Ty to
Plattsburgh.
Yeah, maybe a little past. What's that? Rousseau Point, I think.
Into Canada, right?
Yeah, it's 80 to 90 miles long, but people forget there's another 30 miles or 20 miles past it that's south into South Bay. I want to say Champlain is over 100 miles long.
Yeah, and basically this creates a valley, and this wind rips north to south. That gets bad, and it gets bad really fast. Yeah, you hear about a lot of guys breaking their boats on Champlain because they don't account for you got to always be checking the radars. But I mean, not that New York, our weathermen suck really bad when it comes to wind. They're wrong all the time, but you have to be constantly checking radar and accounting for pop-up storms, because when that wind goes, it gets up and it gets bad really fast. Which obviously is what we've experienced down in Texas, and I'm sure you experience all the time, because those winds, when they pop up, they're not nice.
Yeah, Texas wind is not favorable for any kayak angler out here.
No.
And it's fast and it's furious just how it can get up there. I keep 3 weather apps on my phone. They're the 3 most somewhat accurate that I found.
Okay, I'd be really curious to hear.
And I don't trust our weathermen here in Texas anyways, because I don't care how good they are. It's not going to be right. But I got the 3 weather apps, and I use them mainly for wind. And what I'll do is I'll open each one up, and they're all 3 different. I'll add them all together and divide it. And I'll take that average, and that's what I'm going with. So
a little tip I learned.
Do what?
Is that usually correct when you do that?
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
What are the apps, if you don't mind me asking?
AccuWeather. I don't even know the other 2. I've got them in there.
Probably Wonderground and Weather.
There, Underground, and then it's not the weather app. Is
it Windfinder?
WeatherBug.
Windfinder.
WeatherBug. Yes.
WeatherBug.
Those are the 3, and I'll just open them up, and I'll add the winds together, and I'll divide it, and I'll take the average and go from there.
I love it. So what I found recently, which I never knew this was a thing. I always thought when they said 30 or 50 or 70% chance of precipitation, oh yeah, it's going to rain today, 70% chance. What that means is actually 70% of the area has a slight chance of rain that day. The only time it's really going to rain is if they say 100% chance, because that means everybody in the area is going to have a 100% chance of rain.
I learned that about 3 years ago.
Yeah, I just learned it 6 weeks ago or something. I was like, that's crazy. I never knew. It's thunderstorms, 30% chance. We all hide from the weather. It's probably not going to rain.
Yeah.
Usually in New York, we found that if it says, thunderstorms, 40 mile an hour winds, usually that means it's going to be crystal clear skies and it's going to be beautiful out. But if it says 80, clear skies and sunny, it's probably going to blow like a mother, and it's just not going to be a fun day.
Yeah.
It's
the weather's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing.
Well, it could change on a dime. This is the forecast, but depending on how the front's moving, it could change. Watch a thunderstorm on a radar. How many times does it change north, south, kind of backs up a little bit? It's always changing directions.
We had a tournament on, I think it was Lake Worth. Yeah, Lake Worth. It was with the North Texas Club. And we knew it was going to storm, and we were fully prepared for just a storm. And it wasn't a storm that came through there. It was a monsoon. And we were all tucked up underneath the bridges and everything, and it hit. And we ran in there real fast. The storm stopped. Everybody went out and fished, and I ended up having to leave early to go to work. And when I was getting ready to leave, another storm rolled through and it pushed everybody back up to the bridges again. And I was on the boat ramp, and I was on the left side of the boat ramp. And I ran up to get my truck, and my kayak was on the right side of the boat ramp when I got back. So
Holy crap.
Storms can creep up and then get nasty real quick. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good grief. Well, Andrew, anything left for Mark before we hit him with the last question?
Yeah, man, go ahead. Last
All right,
question's the best question. So
terrifying question. We're gonna hit him with the last question.
Andrew, we haven't actually asked this question, and I feel like in a long time. We haven't had a new guest in some time. Yeah. So Mark, we asked this to any of our new guests that we've never had on the show to kind of wrap things up. We really thoroughly enjoyed this question. So if you could sit down, have a steak, have a beer with 3 different individuals, doesn't have to be in the fishing industry, could be absolutely anybody from childhood hero to some historical figure.
To 100 years BC. Like, it doesn't matter what time frame.
Yeah, dead or alive, doesn't matter. What 3 individuals would you invite to sit down, have a steak and a beer, and pick their brain?
John Wayne, Teddy Roosevelt, Wyatt Earp.
That was the fastest we've ever had an answer.
It's amazing.
And I think that might be the same answer for 80% of Texas.
Yeah.
It's also a fair point.
I mean, those guys. They've been idols since I was a kid, and I mean, of course, John Wayne. Who wouldn't want to sit down and have a steak with John Wayne?
Right.
This is true.
Wyatt Earp, for the simple fact, it's fucking Wyatt Earp. dude shot more outlaws than he can probably keep track of, and then Teddy Roosevelt. Just man, that man was a visionary. So.
He is the reason we have our fisheries and wildlife that we have today.
Yep.
I think, speaking about some of our fisheries, if you knew that some of our fisheries were spraying some of our lakes, that his carry a big stick would be used a lot.
Fair court.
He'd be putting a whooping on some of these. Yeah. End quote. I think that's enough for that. For a story for another day. But for real, Mark, we really appreciate you taking the time out tonight.
Thank you.
And, obviously, coming on the show, we've been hoping to get you on for some time, and we really appreciate you obviously getting on. I'm sure you hear every day. Huge congrats on the win, dude, and hopefully you will be at is Hartwell South Carolina or North Carolina?
I think it's South Carolina.
Are you fishing?
We won't be on Hartwell. I forget where we're going to be, but.
Right, I know the Classic's in Hartwell. I was just trying to remember because you guys are going to be on a nearby lake.
Yeah.
But either way, dude, I'm sure you're going to be fishing that one. So obviously, Definitely. Good luck. And obviously, we'll be in touch. And hopefully, we'll see you down at the Classic as well. I'm hoping – I really would like to get back down to PK when it's not a mud hole and go chase after the deep fish because that
I would love to take my boat.
Amazing. Yeah.
Come down in October. It's the Lone Star Throwdown. It's where all the clubs of Texas get together. You got the North Texas, South Texas, West Texas, East Texas, the alphabet clubs, Southeast Texas and Northeast Texas.
alphabet clubs. I love that.
But sure. All the divisions of Texas get together, and we have it's a club versus club type tournament. Best finishing clubs get medals, and then first, second, and third, just as individuals, get their trophies and everything. Best in Texas, somewhat the best, and almost somewhere the best. So it's a good time. We do a big cookout the night before, so I mean,
Sweet.
It'd be something definitely to come down and join.
Yeah, I'll be the lone New Yorker in a sea of Texas.
Yeah, we'll put you on the North Texas team. We don't care.
It's North. It counts, right? There you go.
I mean, you're a pretty good angler. We might loan you out to like South Texas or something, but they could always use the help.
That's awesome. Well, buddy, I hope to get back down that way. I really want to. Texas was a lot of fun, and I have a lot more to explore and some revenge to get on that place. But for real, dude, I hope we can get you back on the show here soon. We appreciate you taking the time out. It's been an absolute riot to talk to you.
All right, man. It was nice meeting you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
Take care. We'll be in touch.
All right, bye.
See you, Mark. dude, launching 25 yards, casting on a boat ramp, 40-pound bag.
One word, efficiency.
Efficiency. Simple, stupid, badass.
Yes.
3 words. 3 words for me. It's just sick. Like, keeping it simple when everyone else is trying to force it.
Yeah. That's what bass fishing is. We are people with complex, big brains, and then a bass has a brain the size, I want to say, a peanut. So we almost have to limit our brain power down to think almost like a bass and go down to peanut-sized brain and be like, bluegills on the menu today? Let's eat a bluegill type deal. Like, where would the full moon, middle of the bluegill spawn, where will the bass be? Obviously near the bluegill. So, like, that sometimes as bass fishermen, we way overcomplicate and make things way tougher than they have to be. And we just have to slow down, breathe, and go 25 yards from a boat ramp and crank a 5XD.
It's so awesome. I'm so jealous of that bite. I mean, even tournament aside, dude, just that bite he was on just sounds absolutely incredible. I would have just loved to experience that, whether fishing or watching him do it would have been awesome. And total sidebar here. So you mentioned the bluegill spawn. We're going to get into that because that's going to play a factor in what we're going to talk about next. But talking about guys watch each other fish, really cool moment. I would have loved to watch Mark crank that ramp, but Joe McElroy, who was second, something that was really cool is Ryan Lambert, who's a more notable figure in the kayak bass fishing industry, posted him and a couple other folks who watched Joe when he had this time window where he was catching giants. They literally just pulled up, quit their day, and just watched him. Like almost like how you see guys in from fans in like on a boater tournament, like an Elite Series tournament or an MLF that pull up and watch. It was kind of cool to see. He almost did like a live on the water update. The dude's got like a future in live camera television for these fishing tournaments, but it was just something kind of cool, kind of a cool deal with kayak fishing. But Charles Blood here said, hey, Billy, does this count as a recap for nationals like you said on Friday? It was a slight recap. The recap from the BASS Kayak Championship is up on the YouTube channel. Part 1 was posted last week. Part 2, I'm going to try to get out on Wednesday. It's a lot of editing going into it because it is a lot of footage. These aren't short episodes. I'm trying to make them into kind of longer deals to fit as much as I filmed, as much as I could into this and explain it. So it's not just GoPro footage for 40 minutes. It's going to be trying to explain kind of what's going on, because as I admit in part 2, I didn't really do a great job at stopping during practice or during tournament to kind of talk to the camera. I was kind of just so focused on the task at hand. But when we do some of these big national tournaments in 2022, which I plan on fishing a bunch, it's going to be kind of different, more in-depth, kind of talking to the camera, putting out some higher quality video. But either way, part 1 is up on the channel. If you guys want to go check it out, part 2 is going to be coming out this week. And also, our team tournaments, Mr. Andy and I's team tournaments, we had one in Chautauqua and then one on Irondequoit Bay. And we'll be putting those videos out for you guys here shortly because Andy and I got our first dub as a team on Saturday. And Andrew brought up the bluegill spawn, which played I think a critical factor in us getting bigger bites.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
There was grass, and it was really, we talked about this. It was really nice to see healthy milfoil that was not getting sprayed to high heaven
or
like most of the lakes are, or cut. I'm okay with cut. That's fine. Cut doesn't kill fish. Just spraying just we're gonna save this for another episode because I had a conversation with somebody in the fishing industry, and hopefully we're gonna get things rolling here. But so we're gonna save it for another episode. But our win was based on finding healthy milfoil. And we found a lot of healthy milfoil, but you'd see in between these milfoil patches that there were either nearby or in it was these bluegills that were spawning. And that's where a lot of our key bites came from.
I think the other thing, too, that we had around is every once in a while we would see fish pop. And I think it was either the alowives, because there was such a strong south wind on Lake Ontario, it was sucking in the alowives, or there was some other type of bait fish present, maybe like a gizzard shad or something in the bay. because we caught a few on white colored baits as well. So I think there was a mix of that bluegill spawn and like a migratory bait fish that came into the bay, because we got smallies, and you don't normally catch smallies in the bay at the end of June.
Literally in the grass.
Yeah, in the grass. Smallies in the grass, which is just wild.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's one thing to catch them on like grass lines, but like, no, it was in a like literally in a pile of milfoils where this smallmouth came out of.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we saw when we bounced around and we had on our Hobie Sight Masters that day. It was low visibility, so we had on the Sight Master so that we could actually try to, if we did go shallower, try to go beat bank, we could get up and visually try to target these fish, sight fish them.
But it helped to see the grass too in like 6 to 8 foot of water.
Sometimes it's not always fishy. You need to see. It's kind of variables. Sometimes low visibility. Not a lot of guys put on shades, which is fine. But we had them to try to figure out where these milfoil patches were, so that's what we can kind of target. And we saw alewives. I don't know for a fact if there's gizzard shad in Aranaquoit Bay or Lake Ontario. I'd like to think that we saw some.
I believe there's gizzard.
If it really looked like gizzards what we saw, but we did see a lot of perch, and I think that played a big role too. But our biggest bites came from dragging and flipping, and I think was more of a bluegill pattern than anything else. The biggest bite of the day came off of you on a chatterbait, which is more of that pattern. But it was kind of interesting because it wasn't really junk fishing. It was kind of junk fishing off the bat until we kind of put the pieces together, and then it was just one after another. We were just kind of rapid fire. A lot of bites. We caught a lot of fish. We probably 35?
Yeah, I would say between 35 and 45. We caught a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of rock bass to add in there too. And
the rock bass was not part of that 35 to 45. We can probably see that.
And we got 4 or 5 northerns too.
Big northerns too. Yeah. Hey, we successfully caught several giant northerns and didn't lose a single bait.
Yeah, and
we didn't really tie.
No, it was good.
Our hook sets were dialed, dude.
Yeah, we were grooving. So
we were on a level where our minds, like, I couldn't tell you how many times I would bend down to picking up another rod, or Andrew would bend down and pick up another rod, and I'd say, "Hey, dude, you should probably pick up that chatterbait," as he's picking up the chatterbait. Like, our minds were just kind of clicking.
Oh, we were insane.
And we were firing on all cylinders. There was a moment where I cracked one, and then I get in the boat. Andrew cracks one as I'm flipping it in the boat, and as he's flipping it, I'm cracking another one. We literally went back to back to back on multiple occasions, and then Andrew would just come out with his little deal and crack a giant, and then I'd be the weirdo to catch a brownfish out of milfoil. But it was we found
that 5-minute sequence was insane. So you catch a 3-pound smallie that you think was a pike on the chatterbug.
Backtrack. Yeah, okay. Starts with a pike, and then I catch 2 3-pounders, and then you go, and then we move. So you caught like a 2.5, and then it starts like 2 minutes later. There's a smallmouth. We're going through a milfoil. I'm burning a chatterbait, and out of this milfoil patch comes a smallmouth that eats it. But at the time, I'm like, you can hear it in the GoPro footage. I'm like, oh, dang it, because I think it's a pike. So I don't set the hook on him till it comes up and it jumps. And Andrew's like, that's a smallie. And he's like, it's freaking out. And I'm like, I should probably get this thing in the boat. So I just swing it in, and we start freaking out because it's a brownfish in milfoil. Yeah. And then literally as soon as I flip it in, Andrew cracks a 4-pounder. And we get that in. We had to call all. It was a mess trying to call all these fish. And as soon as we call, Andrew steps up his first or second flip, cracks another 4.5.
It was literally the next cast. I turned the boat around, went back in, I flipped back in, I came down, and my line was coming right back to me, and I was like, well, I'm gonna hit him again, and it was another almost 4-pound fish. So,
we were firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It was awesome in the fact that we kind of went back. It was kind of cool because Andrew and I think very differently, but once we figured out and put all the clues together, we were thinking kind of in sync in the terms of we agreed on everything. And that's why kind of Andrew and I work together fishing wise, is because we like to disagree on a lot of things. So it adds a little bit of a fresh perspective.
That's right. It's like, hey, dude, throw that popper. And you're like, oh, I already have it in my hand. I'm like, perfect. It like slacked off for him. I'm like, one of us should be throwing that popper. And
Yeah.
here's Bailey with the popper rod. Cassie, I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. Like,
that works.
You go, girl.
even though we didn't get bid on it, unfortunately. No. But it was a cool day because, like, one, we fished clean besides the first fish. Okay, so we literally pull up to our first spot, and my first drop.
Big brown one.
Yeah, a big brown fish. Drop it. And then, like, that's kind of how Chautauqua started for us, and the fact that we lost, like, our first 7-8 fish. Mm-hmm. Like, it was bad. We're not prepared. And we thought, as soon as I dropped that first one, I was like, oh, no. Like, this is not happening again. And it took us like 20 minutes to get that next bite. And as soon as I cracked the first one, got it in.
It was like a 3.5.
And then I cracked one, and then you caught the giant. And we were like, okay, now we're vibing. And we kind of got a feel for what they were doing. We're like, we can run this. Yeah. And we ran it around a couple different areas. And it kind of like, once we got, that's why we kind of work together, dude. And the fact that like we disagree to the point of where it all kind of like it clicks and it meshes. And then we're like agreeing on all cylinders.
I think. Because I caught that big one that was like 20 minutes, and we're like, we got to move, literally in sequence. And I was like, let's go check these docks over here. I've always gotten a big one off of it. And sure enough, as soon as we get to the end, I'm like, oh, we got to move. You're like, oh, got one. It was like a 2.5, 3-pounder. And I was like, okay. And then where you caught it, we went back through there and we caught a couple pike and another good one. And then we saw topped out milfoil, and we're like, well, we can't move. We should fish down this. And ultimately, that led into the 3-pound smallie, and then 2 almost 4-pounders, like back to back to back. And we're like, okay, we're gonna run this until we run out of milfoil. And literally, it was like a mile stretch of just flipping, catching endless amounts of 2-pounders. Like, it was just an absolute riot. Absolute riot.
I think we caught like 5 fish off of one dock. They were all 2.5 pounds.
Yeah. Couple almost 3 probably.
Yeah, we're like, this is like not gonna help us whatsoever, but this is too much fun to leave.
Yeah, like you're skipping the chatterbait under it, and I was throwing my deal, and literally I think it was like 5 or 6 casts in a row. We either got a bite or put one in the boat.
Yeah, it was a good time because I think it wasn't really the fish catching that was more satisfying. I think it was the process of how we put the pieces together.
Yeah,
and it kind of just clicked. I think that's what's most satisfying now for me. Obviously, catching fish is a hell of a lot of fun. Finding fish is a hell of a lot of fun. But when things like when you can put the equation together and it leads to success, that's what's probably the most satisfying to me now. At least as a tournament angler.
Absolutely. Awesome. And we didn't let our losses spin us out because I broke off that one on a dock that we never saw later on in the day, but that was probably another big one.
Mm-hmm.
I set the hook and just clean broke.
It was a fun day, and it's cool to see healthy grass, a healthy fishery.
Finally. So back to Drew Gregory, the guy's like a genius. I think it has that new lake effect going on because the water was so high the last 2 years that it's so nutrient rich because there was grass in places I've never seen grass at Irondequoit, and it was beautiful. So I think there's like this fresh like rejuvenation going on there. And the grass was just incredible everywhere. I didn't mean to name drop the bay, but
I already mentioned it earlier. I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think people are going to drive from Ohio to come fish Irondequoit Bay. It's not a very big tournament fishery.
No,
it's cool because I think for the folks that are local that are listening to this, I think it's cool to see that this is something that as proof to show that when you treat a fishery right, you let it be, you let nature run its course, that it can make a healthy fishery. And look, the pleasure boaters are still out there. They're in the middle of the lake as they should be.
Yeah.
People are fine, fishermen amongst pleasure boaters. You don't need to spray the grass. I think this is an example that we need to use and take to the DEC to stop spraying the crap out of our fisheries and killing fish.
I think they sprayed Irondequoit maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And for the last 5 years to recent memory, it was crap. Like 13 pounds a day would win, long, skinny fish, no bluegill anywhere. If you found bluegill, they were really little or really big. All the bluegill I saw on Saturday, I don't know about if we're looking at the same fish or not. They were all like that prime 4 to 5 inch bass eating, to be eaten by bass, perfect lunch size bluegill. And that's what you want to see.
That saw a lot of perch, saw a lot of alewives. We caught the pike that we caught were all healthy. Not that I'm a big pike advocate, but like I know they have their place in the ecosystem.
Yeah,
it was nice to
you
see
have
they were healthy.
clean, healthy water. You're going to
Yeah.
have big pike. And what I've found is if you have a fishery with big pike in it, usually the bass fishery is really healthy as well. Usually, because they go hand in hand. Clean water.
Yeah, that means you have a good nutrient base. You have a good forage. Because every large majority we caught. Well, I was going to say 2. I caught 1 smallmouth. We had 2 on, but either way, every fish that we caught largemouth wise was very healthy. That's what was really cool to see. It adds a cool sense when you're catching healthy fish.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see the fishery doing that well. And one thing I noticed too was like we bounced around really shallow, like dirt shallow, to see the bottom not look like crap. It got a sense of it was just clean.
Yeah.
For such a populated pleasure boating lake, it was very clean, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, we only found one area of kind of slimy, grungy water, but that's where there's no current flow, and you could have some residues and leftover chemicals from when they sprayed last, or it's just a muck bottom and doesn't have a lot of current or nutrients flowing through it. But that's about it. Anywhere that was like main bay was literally pristine.
And it sucks to see some of our, not saying that all of our lakes are crap, because they're not. A lot of our lakes are amazing, but there's some of our lakes around here that are just getting destroyed by these chemicals. And obviously they're bigger, so it's not happening at that rapid rate, but in a few years, who knows? I don't want to, I mean, knock on wood, I hope things get better, but like it's still, you're hearing of fish kills among these lakes, and I'm not a biologist. I don't want to put blame on something, but if I had to guess, it'd probably be from the spraying.
Well, so I don't know how many people follow me on Facebook, but last couple of days I posted a report that came out from Lake Okeechobee from them spraying all the chemicals down there. And the water is 15 times more toxic to the human touch than acceptable levels by the FDA because of all the chemicals they're spraying in that lake. So that tells you, yes, it's great for killing weeds for pleasure boaters, but ultimately, what is it doing to the human body? And ultimately, not only are we affecting thousands of fish lives, yes, we're fishermen, we hook them with hooks, but we're also greatly impacting the community lives, and it smells terrible. You don't want to touch the water because then you get this blue algae alert by September. You can't swim in it because the water looks like a giant green mat that you can hardly cast through because it's so thick. It's just disgusting. Like,
yeah,
chemicals have no place to be in the waterway, especially when a lot of them drain into the Erie Canal or into the Great Lakes through the watershed, and it's just not good.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, like, you can look at the red tide situation on the Gulf Coast out of Lake Okeechobee. A lot of that was caused because of the chemicals being sprayed in the Lake Okeechobee, flowing down in the Key West and coming up the Gulf Coast with the current and killing a ton of marine life. Like, it's just not good. Not good at all.
Great point. Well, folks, one more thing before Andrew and I sign off tonight. Kind of a reminder, July 1st, we are starting a massive giveaway. Like,
Massive.
Week one, we are going to have a big giveaway. Week 2, we're going to have a big giveaway. Week 3, big giveaway. You kind of get the gist. The whole month of July, each week, we're going to have a big thing to kind of give away, to give to you folks for a chance to win. So you guys got to go over to our Instagram page, follow us on there to keep along, put on your notifications. Go over to Facebook if you're not already watching right now through Facebook. Follow our Facebook page because we're going to run it on both. You're going to have winners for each week. And obviously, if you're not already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and then obviously stay tuned for the giveaway. It's going to be announced and starting on July 1st. But in stride of that, we got some more fishing tournament videos coming out for you guys, more podcasts coming. We have Garrett Paquette on Friday. So we're really excited to get Garrett back on the show. He's a good friend of ours, and we're going to be talking some fishing, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Andrew, anything else for the folks before we sign off here?
No, get in contact for some fall dates. Big smallmouth fishing coming up September, October. It's a great time to catch them power fishing. So if you know how to use a bait caster and you want to go sling around heavy line and a heavy rod, we can catch 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 fish a day. So,
you know, it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. First of all, the fall time on Erie is absolutely freaking stupid, like bonkers.
If you can deal with the cold weather and you want to book a trip, I just need your phone number because it has to be like a 2-day notice or a 1-day notice. Be like, hey, you need to get up here tomorrow because it's on. We don't have wind. It's going to be 35 degrees out. It's going to be cold, but we're going to catch 100 fish type deal. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and if you book a trip through Andy, mention it through the podcast. And what we can do is on August 14th, I am actually moving to Buffalo. My fiance and I are moving to the Buffalo area, literally like 10 minutes from Andrew. We're not far from the ramp. And what we can do, if you guys are interested, I'll mention that you're obviously getting your trip through the podcast to Andrew. And what we could do is maybe we could do a show with a guest, get them on the podcast, maybe do it at the ramp. Maybe you do it, wherever, at a local bar or something. We could do a fishing bar
like
podcast. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool.
Be fun.
But set up a trip with Andrew here. We got some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipe. And as always, folks, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you.